Meanwhile, amid the violence, white South African militias opened fire on an unarmed black family with a 10-year-old child in the vehicle. In a video released by the Telegraph UK, the militia and family can be seen arguing in front of a car dealership. This is the worst violence the country has seen since apartheid.
Well, for an update, our correspondent MXOLISI MASANGO tells us more from South Africa. All right, MXOLISI, thank you so much for joining us. Almost thought that was a report that was going to play there. What is fueling this situation now? Just listening to that report, very, very pathetic, where this, black woman, a shop owner, was more or less expressing her frustration.
Look, some couple of days into the looting that we've seen in some parts of the country, the cleanup efforts have now started, but this is where the actual work begins, because this is when South Africans as well as government really tries to find answers as to who's actually responsible and what is the root cause of all the unrest that we've seen. That's a very powerful upsound that we just got now from Mutandi Johnson, where she was speaking about how the very same people that looted her shop, the very same shop that is expected to be, providing some sort of food, some staple for families that she's hired into that business, are the very same people who looted her shop and are the very same people that are going to be helping her pick up the pieces of what essentially is so many years of hard work, so many years of hard work and tears, and ensuring that she puts the business together, and it's all now crumbled in a matter of hours, in a matter of a few days. That's what is really going through most South Africans' heads right now, really trying to pick up the pieces and really trying to figure out what is the next way forward. But I can tell you right now, this is when the actual effects of the looting we've seen happening over the past couple of days are going to start kicking in. I literally had to drive some few kilometers to get fuel because some fuel stations have ran out of fuel. They do not have fuel because some of their trucks and the supply chain has been severely disrupted, as we're also seeing now some major retailers are also feeling the brunt. It was really heartbreaking having to speak to some South Africans this morning throughout the course of the day as they speak to me, saying that what are they going to do? They've essentially lost their jobs, because if there's no building to work at, there is no work. If there is no work, there is no food. And if there is no food, there's more poverty. And is this really just the tip of the iceberg? Are we going to be seeing more looting in the country? Are we going to be seeing more violence in the country? So those are some of the questions that we're getting right now, which we don't even have answers to, where you have a government that fails to have a decisive action, that fails to step up onto the plate, only deploying soldiers now. Couldn't they have done that a few days ago? Could they have averted this possible crisis that we've seen? So those are some of the questions that we're getting on the ground, which we don't even have answers to as media.
Exactly what we were discussing a while ago off camera. Did they come a little bit to that? MXOLISI, well, let me throw the question back at you. The community leaders are beginning to speak up. We were talking a while ago about the timing of the government intervention. And somebody describes this as the worst violence since apartheid. Is that hyperbole or is it real? And then is the community leaders' intervention too little, too late? What do you think?
It would seem like the community members, as well as members of the community policing forums action right now, is a last-ditch attempt indeed to try and salvage what's left of those communities. I was taken aback when listening to a young man who was standing at a mall in the early hours of the morning last night to say that he was going to protect essentially the mall that they built with their bare hands in Soweto, a mall that represents the livelihoods of so many people who live around the area. He said that he was going to stay there overnight with many more community members who said they're willing to protect those establishments with their lives, because that's what livelihoods are in the country right now. It would seem like these are the community members who are stepping up onto the plate, seeing that we've seen a police force that has been overwhelmed. I mean, those were really heartbreaking images we saw yesterday, where people were going about looting and members of the police force were just watching them and choosing to just direct traffic instead. So community members have now decided that they're going to be taking up arms and they're going to be sitting and monitoring the situation overnight right now. And that upsound and the incident that we saw right now of violence, which sparked allegations of racial tensions in KwaZulu-Natal, was equally heartbreaking. So right now, it's just South Africans trying to figure out what their next step is going to be following the unrest we've seen in the country over the past few days.
Yeah, yes, indeed, MXOLISI. And experts are saying that the crisis will come back to bite politicians in the future, considering the precarious situation of the economy in South Africa.
Absolutely. And, you know, it doesn't take an economist to figure out that South Africa is really going to struggle having to come back from this nightmare. And I'm even more keen to find out how the polls are going to fare out in the local government elections, because we've got the local government elections coming up in the country later on in the year, which is very surprising, because you would have thought that with a country that is right at the height of the third wave of COVID-19 infections, you'd have a government that is considerate enough to postpone those elections, but they felt no, they will be going ahead with elections. So South Africans have seemingly also got some sort of a wake-up call, where we've seen on social media throughout the course of all this unrest that has been happening. South Africans are really saying they've used this opportunity to do some introspection, to really figure out what kind of a government they want. Are they going to stick to a government that is slow to react, with a government that is not decisive enough, and a government that really takes its time to speak to the plight of the people? So it will be interesting to see how the polls in the upcoming local government elections are going to fare, given what has been happening in the country over the past few days.
So much for the update, MXOLISI MASANGO, correspondent in South Africa, where there have been real looting and destruction of properties.
Yeah, it's like a free-for-all, and the deployment of 2,500 soldiers doesn't seem to have made much difference.
Is saying they need stability in the country. We just hope they get a hang on it.
Yeah.